The train with the longest pedigree on the East Coast Main Line was, of course, the Flying Scotsman. It first really got the name in 1888, and it's still in use today. In 1958, it was made up mainly of Mark I cars, and astonishingly was a New England diagram going north. Seen here, behind 60506, Wolf of Badenoch. One of the most prestigious trains on the East Coast Main Line in 1958 was the Queen of Scots Pullman between King's Cross and Glasgow via Leeds. Here it is heading north in all its finery behind an A1. And a V2 goes by at a steady pace, this one weathered by Tom Foster. Speaking of pace, high pace, there's no other place in the realm where so many 100-mile-an-hour runnings have taken place than Little Bytham. Just look at the works of Knock, Ransom Wallace and Allen. See in their logs, Little Bytham is mentioned time after time. I'd like to thank at this point Jesse Sim, who's visible in this picture. He helped me make the DVD by running trains. A lot of people have been involved with the building of Little Bytham, and you can see the results here. Buildings by Ian Wilson and by Bob Dawson. Track work by Norman Solomon. I made most of the locomotives and, for the record, most of the passenger carrying stock. I'll only mention the locomotives made by other people as we go through this presentation. With all the names being mentioned, please don't get the impression that Little Bytham is the product of checkbook modelling. It most certainly isn't. Most of it's been arrived at by that wonderful English custom of barter. I've made locos, I've repaired locos, I've painted back scenes, I've taken pictures, and I've made videos, all in exchange. Though not the most common of types, B-16s could be seen south of Grantham on the odd occasion, such as here. This loco, built by Tony Geary, heads a train made by Rob Kinsey. Notice the lamps. Nothing runs on Little Bytham without the correct lamps, front and rear. The non-stop, the Elizabethan, in this case Edinburgh to King's Cross, behind a Haymarket A4, 60024 Kingfisher. I wrote about this train when I made it, 25 years ago. It appeared in BRM then. An A3 races south on an up express. Alan Hammett built this locomotive, and Tony Geary made most of the train, with just a few bits and pieces in it made by me and John Holden. The fast Newcastle King's Cross Express is seen here headed by a Gateshead Pacific 60155 Borderer. Note in its consists the triplet set, originally made for the 1935 Silver Jubilee. It's passed by a V2 heading north on yet another fully fitted express freight. This was a feature of this line, long distance, long, fast freights, often hauled by Gresley's 262s. An A2 heads north on a King's Cross Edinburgh Glasgow Express, complete with full kitchen car. As with many of the locomotives I've made, this one has been painted by Ian Rathbone perfectly. One of the things I'm zealous about with any model railway I've been involved with is good running. If all the basic first principles are followed, good baseboards, good track, consistent locos, stock, compatibility, simple, robust electrics, no DCC for me I'm afraid, then you can get excellent running, as I hope this DVD shows. Not all the trains running through Little Bytham in 1958 were long distance nor fast. Here's a sort of short distance, probably Peterborough to Grantham, hauled by an 022. It's passed by an A4 in the form of 60002 Sir Murrah Wilson on the down Tees-Tyne Pullman. The 022 and the Pullman cars were weathered for me by Tim Shackleton. York Shed had not a lot of top-link duty, but here we see one of its A1s racing south on a York King's Cross Express. In this case, the loco was painted for me by Jeff Haynes. Peterborough's Pacifics tended to be on more mundane duties than, say, Top Shed or Grantham or Gateshead, and here is an A23 on a typical parcels working. It's passed by a 9F heading south on full minerals, originating from the Nottinghamshire pits. The loco, the 9F, was built by my eldest son Tom when he was a mere 15 years old. The scenic work really is the work of several of us, including myself, Richard Wilson and Gilbert Barnett, so thanks to them for all their inputs in that respect. An A1 takes the Northumbrian northwards. In this consist there's another triplet set, in this case the X1938 triplet from the Flying Scotsman, now fitted with a standing bar. I've lost count of the number of V2s I've built, but they were very common on the East Coast Main Line, so have to be included. Here's an old Newcastle one, taking a summer Saturday extra northwards. I don't have many RTR locos on Little Bytham, just the occasional one or two, as in this case a modified Bachmann 9F. It's heading the Cliff Uddingston cement block train. The train itself built by Rob Kinsey. It's passed by an A1 on the Up West Riding. The A1 was built by Tony Geary. The train, mine. Though the carriage of coal made a lot of money for the railways, the empties had to be returned to their pits. In this case, hauled by an Austerity 280, a DJH kit. The wagons have been weathered perfectly by Rob Davey. A fast one-stop service to Edinburgh was the Talisman, here hauled by yet another A4 in the form of 60034 Lord Farringdon. The train is modified Bachmann Mark Is. Just for a change, a very short train. Note the tractors. from the Alice Chalmers factory at Essendine. When the prototype Deltic came to the East Coast Main Line in 1958, one of its duties was the down White Rose as far as Doncaster. And here it is. Once again, the West Riding. From Leeds Central, picking up bits at Wakefield from Bradford to King's Cross. A1, as usually, hauled. Notice the articulated twins in this train, survivors from the pre-war train, the streamliner of the same name. A K3, again built by Alan Hammett, departs from the Upslow across to the Upfast, on an all-stations parliamentary. More Arctic twins, this time built by Tony Geary from Southern Pride Components. An A23 passes with an up Newcastle Express, including a different type this time of triplet, one of the 1924 ordinary ones. I'd never tried to make a DMU, and even if I did, it wouldn't be as good as this. A modified Bachmann Craven's unit enters from the south. It's passed by the Teestein Pullman, already described. Those with the knowledge will know that this Pullman train is slightly anachronistic. The Mark I cars didn't appear until a year after Little Bytham station was closed and demolished, but they are rather nice. With the Pullman safely out of the way, the DMU gets the road from the slow to the fast, heading north. The A1s had many of the Pullmans, in this case the Yorkshire Pullman hauled by Bongras. The train came from Harrogate, Leeds, Bradford, York and Hull, and was made up at Doncaster. In 1958, the Midland and Great Northern was still operating, and here we have a B12 on the Leicester. The bridge here is really no more than a sort of mock-up representation. Thanks to Jamie Guest, I've now got all the etches to produce an accurate model of this bridge. On summer Saturdays, many excursion trains were run from the East Midlands cities to the Norfolk coast, in this case behind one of Ivett's Flying Pigs. I don't know how many people have been involved with the building of this, but several have already died. I completed it, and I've survived. On weekdays, apart from the Leicester, most of the passenger trains were very short on the Midland and Great Northern, such as this, a Nottingham Lynn 3-car set, hauled by a modified Bachmann 4F. Another heavy full coal train heads south, heading for New England Yard for redistribution behind a modified Hellion 023. The 3 set, passing above behind a southeastern Finecast 4F, was built by that great coach modeller Larry Goddard many years ago. Not long ago, I received them very much second-hand, and fortunately I was able to repair them and patch paint them. One of Grantham's A5s passes on an all stations Grantham-Peterborough stopper. It's passed by an A4 on the up, afternoon and very fast Taliesin. The signals are the work of Graham Nicholas and Mick Nicholson, and they are absolutely wonderful. They complement the Norman Solomon trackwork perfectly. I'm very fortunate to have such skilled individuals in the team which built Little Bitham. I think part of the excitement of running Little Bitham is seeing long distance, long, fast trains passing each other. In this case, a York Express heading for King's Cross and going north, the Scotch goods. Please note the weathering. Nothing runs on Little Bitham without having been weathered. Coach sides might be shiny, but roofs, ends and bogies underframes have all been weathered. Nothing to me looks less realistic than shiny, gleaming, out-of-the-shops products. Though not very common, I'm sure the occasional L1 would pass through Little Bitham, in this case on a stopping train. The loco is modified Hornby, and the carriages from a variety of different kits. Not much RTR on here. Though I mentioned I've only got 1 or 2 RTR locomotives, actually about 6 or 7 are featured here. If nothing else, it shows how good modern proprietary locomotives are. However, my preference will always be kit building. We see the Cliff Uddingston cement block train once more. And please note the point rodding. This is one of the last jobs I've got to do on Little Bitham, and it's taking me ages. But it has to be done. A B1 enters the station on a Nottingham King's Cross train and stops. It's accompanied by a northbound stopping train, in this case hauled by a J6. Ian Wilson started this loco and I completed it for him. The J6 gets underway, and it's passed by an A2, one of York's A2s with double chimney and multiple valve regulator. Another V2, this time heading north on a down express, and it's passed by an A3 on an up express. Very common, expresses passing each other at Little Bitham. Some of the V2s I've made have been via Graham King's resin body on a Comet chassis. And here's one heading north, passing a DJH 9F. And yet another Graham King V2, in this case in BR black. Note the pair of vans on the rear of this fish train. These were known as swingers and were added at intermediate stations to stop the time lost in splitting the train. It was, of course, fully fitted. Rob Davey made and weathered the complete train. One thing which disappeared from our home railways, getting on for 50, maybe 60 years ago now, was the pickup freight. It was very time intensive and to some extent labour intensive. If you look at this sequence, the loco arrives with its train. Sorry about the wobbly wagon. Note the cleaning pad on this brake van. Several brake vans are fitted with these. They're available from Gagemaster. They're just a felt pad. Nothing is put on them, but it takes the dust off the track and keeps it clean. Coupling and uncoupling is achieved by the use of Spratt and Winkle couplings, activated by magnets laid in the ballast. The system works really well. And conducts a whole series of manoeuvres across the slips and diamonds to get from the downside to the upside. All of this is achieved very, very well because the locomotive, built by Alan Hammett, and the trackwork by Norman Solomon are perfectly compatible. The working ground signals were made by my friend Roy Vinter, a one-time fireman at Grantham. That sound, by the way, is that of a real train, just about 50 feet away. The pickup was probably the least important train in the whole day, so it would stand in the lay-by until other trains went past. Even a humble, unfitted freight, the like of which behind this 022. And it would certainly wait for a parcels train or empty stock train, in this case hauled by a K3. It's 1 out of 10 at any one time in BR days, fitted with a Great Northern tender. The pickup departs. Its next stop, Corby Glen, where the process will be repeated. The singular W1, 464, or 4622 for the pedants. 60700 heads north on a down express. Little by them, the station and its environment was demolished after closure in the summer of 1959. Almost nothing now remains. The Willoughby is still there, of course, and the booking office, and the station master's house. But now it's just 4 tracks, electrified. And just to finish, both the train sets in operation. The 02 on the heavy, full goods heading south, the B12 on the Leicester. The time period on the M&GN, I must admit, is very flexible. 10 years since nationalisation and its closure in 1959. And an A22 on a York Express.